Now you've got your great adventure bike and you keep adding accessories and luggage systems to your motorcycle, but when's the last time you thought about how much weight you're actually adding to your motorcycle and what an impact it has on your riding? Well, in this video, I'm going to break it down for you. What's up, my biker friends, and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to talk about weight, not our own weight. We're going to talk about the weight of our motorcycles and all the weight that we keep adding by adding accessories to the motorcycle. Now this video is going to be in 3 parts. I'm going to go through all the accessories that I have installed on my motorcycle and give you a detailed breakdown of all the weight that I've added by installing all these accessories. And in the second part, I'm going to look at a very popular setup of adding luggage systems to your motorcycle and additional protection, and to see how much weight we add when we do all that. And then last but not least, I'm going to give you a few diet tips, what you can do to actually reduce the weight of your motorcycle without actually spending too much money and losing too much of functionality. Now, for those of you guys that know the channel, they know that I have added a lot of accessories over the years to my KTM 1290 Super Adventure S. Those accessories provide additional functionality, additional protection to the bike, and they all have their place, but they all bring the individual weight. Now, I didn't really think about that until I started taking all these accessories off while I was switching my motorcycle from the S model to the R model. And all of a sudden I had this big box of accessory and I was quite surprised how heavy that actually was. That's the first time I started thinking about it, and I was really curious to see how much weight did I actually add to my motorcycle by having all these great accessories on the bike. So I'm going to list down from the heaviest things that I have down to the really light items. I'm just going to sum up. But for some of the heaviest items, we're going to talk about them in detail. So guys, I'm going to use my KTM 1290 Super Adventure S as an example. That motorcycle has a dry weight of 217 kilograms. And if you add all the liquids and the gasoline, you get to an even 240 kilograms of wet weight ready to ride. I'm going to use that as a baseline, and I'm going to start adding all those accessories up, and we'll see how much weight we add in total and what that does to the overall weight of the motorcycle. Let's start with the heaviest piece of accessory that I have on a motorcycle, and that's actually the KTM Powerparts crush bars. Now they don't look very big and don't look very heavy, but they're pretty solid metal. And then once you take them off, you actually see how heavy they are. Now, of course, they serve a really important purpose. Every time you tip over the bike or you crash with the bike, especially if you go off-road riding, the bike will fall to one side or the other. Those crash bars really make sure that some of the major parts of the motorcycle do not get damaged. Now, I had a couple of road crashes with my bike and had a lot of times when I crashed the bike off-road, and these crash bars really prevented any serious damage, especially damage that prevents you from continuing your journey. So they're a very good investment, but the total weight of these crash bars is about 5 kilograms. Now, the next heaviest thing is the Altrider bash plate that I have. It protects the underside of the engine, and it's an accessory part that you don't really need if you're just road riding. But if you take your adventure bike off-road and you want to prevent any of the serious damage that can happen to the underside of the engine or the exhaust pipe or the catalytic converter, then having sort of a bash plate to the underside of the motor is a must-have. If you want something sturdy, you'll end up in the range of what the Altrider skid plate weighs. That skid plate comes in at about 4.5 kilograms. I'm using manufacturer data, I actually didn't weigh it, but it's about 4.5 kilograms and makes it the second heaviest piece of accessory that I had on the S model. So the next accessory is actually not something that you really need on the motorcycle, but something that's very dear to my heart and very important for my rider's safety. And those are the SW Motech fog lights. Those W Motech fog lights provide much better visibility for oncoming traffic. I have those lights on all the time. They provide extra light in nighttime riding situations, but I usually don't ride at night. I keep them on during the daytime, and I can definitely tell that oncoming traffic is seeing me a lot better when I have these fog lights on. Now, these fog lights weigh about 1.6 kilograms altogether with all the cables and the actual lights. It's about 1.6 kilograms in additional weight. So now we're getting to the sub 1 kilogram category, and the next thing that I have were the front and rear axle sliders. Those are SW Motech sliders. So they protect the rear swing and the front forks if the bike basically falls on the road. They just have this little sort of protrusion out there and make sure that if the bike goes sideways, it doesn't scratch any of those parts. Were actually quite useful to have when I had my road crash with the bike, and these SW Motech front and rear axle sliders at about 900 grams. Now the next thing was actually quite a surprise, and that's the GPS unit. It's not just the GPS unit itself, but it's all the mounting hardware that you need to actually mount it to your bike. So having the cradle and the actual mount and the GPS unit itself. And it's also something that I bring on every tour with me, and that adds 720 grams to the list. Another thing that I always carry with me on the motorcycle is actually my phone. So I have a phone mount that connects directly to my handlebar. I actually converted it to do wireless charging on my iPhone. And if I add up all those brackets and mounting parts, that's about 600 grams in weight, not including the telephone. So the next thing I'm just going to list off because they're less than 500 kilograms, but they kind of add up if you have all these small accessories. And the one thing I added was actually the radiator guard for the motorcycle. And that's around 200 grams for the radiator guard. The next thing that I had on there, and I still have on the R model, is the frame guards. So I don't scratch the paint off with my boots. Frame guards around close to 200 grams in additional weight. I always have that GoPro clamp that I use. I always keep it on the bike. It's something you can easily take off if you take the bike off-road riding. But usually for touring, I just leave it on the bike. And that's almost 150 grams for that. The next things are air pre-filter. Those are these small little foam pre-filters that you put on the bike. They're not very heavy. It's 130 grams for that. Also, I'm always using the dongle. That's less than 100 grams. It's not really adding a lot of weight to it, but the bike needs that dongle in order to keep the off-road settings and not just start over every time you start the bike. Then I'm also using a tank ring for the quick lock system for the tank bag. That's an SW Motech tank ring. Again, less than 100 grams, but it always stays with the bike. And then I have additional GoPro mounts that are often here, again, less than 100 gram. A couple of those mounts that I had on the bike. Now, even though if each of these pieces of accessory don't really weigh that much, and these large adventure bikes are already pretty heavy as they are, if you sum it all up, you sum up all those accessories that I just mentioned, you end up in the vicinity of 14.3 kilograms of extra accessories, and then you add them to the 217 kilograms of dry weight, you end up in the vicinity of 231 kilograms for the dry weight, and about 254 kilograms for the wet weight. That's a significant increase in weight, but that's not where it stops. There are a lot of riders that add additional protection and especially luggage systems in order to carry the luggage if they go traveling. And this is where you start adding the real weight. If you add upper crash bar protection in addition to the lower crash bars, there were 5 kilograms. You add the upper crash bar protection, that's an additional 4 kilograms in weight if you add those. Now that gets me to the luggage section. Now these hard cases are still very popular with most adventure riders. So you have these metal boxes, metal panniers on the top cases, and you can't just mount them to the bike. You actually need a rack, a pannier rack on your motorcycle in order to have these hard cases mounted to your motorcycle. So if you just install a rack, that adds another 5 kilograms of weight to your motorcycle. And usually that rack sits on the bike. Even if you take the hard cases off, you still have the rack on your bike, because in most setups, these remain on the bike. Now the kicker is actually the weight that you bring with those hard cases, how much they weigh and how much extra load they're rated for. So if we take the example of the SW Motech Track Series, if you take both hard cases, the side pannier hard cases, they weigh a combined 11 kilograms. And then you add the top case to it, which is another 5 kilograms. When you add up all the weight of the luggage rack, of the hard cases and the top case, you end up with 21 kilograms of additional weight, and you haven't actually put any of your luggage in there yet. The interesting thing also is that they're maximum rated for 10 kilograms each. So the total load of capacity that you can put in is 30 kilograms. So you're bringing 21 kilograms just in the luggage setup in order to carry 30 kilograms. I think that's absolutely crazy. So if we just take the upper crash bar protection and the luggage setup with hard cases and the rack that you need for it, that's another 25 kilograms. You add that now to the accessories that we listed in the first part of the videos, you end up with almost 40 kilograms in additional weight to your bike. So if you do the math and you add the 217 kilograms of dry weight and add 40 kilograms of weight for accessories, you end up with a bike that weighs 256 kilograms dry. Add all the liquids and the gasoline and have a bike ready to ride, and the bike weighs about 280 kilograms. And that's without the luggage and without the rider. Now, there's a good reason to install all these accessories on the bike. They add additional functionality, additional protection, and many of those accessories that are listed in the first part of the video are actually making it to the new R model because I think they're worth the weight and the additional weight. With every kilogram that you add to your motorcycle, it really impacts how the bike handles. And now if we're going on tour and you like to go these curvy roads, every additional kilogram is something that you can actually feel riding, despite the fact that these bikes are already heavy as they are, but you're adding another 40 kilograms of additional accessory plus the luggage that you're adding and the rider. That's a lot of weight to carry, and that's something you definitely can feel when you're riding curvy roads. And the easiest part of actually bringing some of the weight down is looking at different luggage solutions. Now, most of us are not world travelers. We're not traveling the world for 6 to 12 months at a time, where we need all the hard luggage that we can lock. A lot of us, our world travel is 10 days at a time. And, you have to question yourself, do you really need the hard luggage? For me, I made the choice to actually go with soft luggage. I don't want a heavy rack on there, and I don't want the luggage system to actually weigh more than the actual luggage that I'm bringing. So I've been very keen after my first year to actually look for very, very light and waterproof luggage solutions in order not to, add the additional 20 kilograms in luggage just to be able to carry some of the stuff on my motorcycle. Now, this brings me to the last section, the diet section of the bike. What can we actually do to reduce some of the weight of these large adventure bikes? And I'll give you a few examples. They're specific to KTM, but they kind of work on most of the other large adventure bikes too. One of the first and easy places that you can look at is actually with the exhaust, and actually the slip-on exhaust that you have on the bike, switching from the stock exhaust to something like an Akrapovic slip-on muffler. That can get you in a range of 3 kilograms of weight saving. Now, most of the time we don't do it for the weight saving. We do it for optical reasons or a better sound of the bike. That's one of the first things I did on my KTM. I didn't really like the stock sound, but also got the benefit of having a lighter exhaust and reducing the overall bike weight by another 3 kilograms. Now, the next major thing that you can do for the weight saving is really something that's important to you, is actually swap out the standard stock battery to a lithium-ion battery. Now, that's something I haven't done yet, but I plan to do. And you can easily save around 3 kilograms of weight when you make that change. Now, the next part where I'm actually really saving weight is actually removing parts that I don't really need on the bike. And the heaviest thing that I removed on my KTM 1290 Super Adventure R is actually the luggage rack, the grab handles, and the mounting points for the plastic panniers that KTM offers. If you sum it all up, it's just under 2 kilograms of weight saving. The next things that I removed are actually the rear foot pegs. I hardly ever travel with a passenger, so I just removed the foot pegs and they come in at about 900 grams. Now, the next thing that I removed is actually the coal canister that sits under the passenger seats in the 2020 1290 Super Adventure S and R models. It's a pretty easy removal, and it's also reversible. It takes only a few minutes to remove it. It only takes a few minutes to put it back in. If you want it back in, gives you some extra space, and it saves you 400 grams. Now, last but not least, you could remove the center stand. Now, the center stand is quite convenient to have, but you don't really need it. If you can just work with the side stand, you can remove the center stand. I'm not quite sure exactly what it weighs. I would guess it's probably in the range of 2 kilograms of weight savings that you can expect. Now, if you sum up all those weight savings, you get in the range of just over 10 kilograms of weight savings. And that just counterbalances some of the accessories that you probably still have on the bike. Okay, guys, it definitely pays to have a close look at how much weight you actually add to your motorcycle, because it does impact the riding quality of the motorcycle. I hope you found this a little useful and gave you some ideas on what you can do with the bike, and be a bit more conscious about what you start bolting onto your bike. If you liked the video, give me a thumbs up. If you have comments and additional suggestions, please put them in the comments section. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, ride safe and stay awesome.